They were wrong. The meeting wasn't a negotiation. It was an execution. And she wasn't the victim. She was the one holding the axe. I was there when the blade fell. To understand the slaughter, you have to understand the war. I should know. I had a front row seat for 45 years. I saw every lie, every betrayal from the very beginning. I met Eleanor and Richard when they had nothing but a garage and an idea that burned hotter than the sun. They didn't come from money. They built it from sawdust and soul. That garage workshop became Vance Interiors, an empire they bled for. It wasn't just a business to them. It was their life. Their other children, Robert and Cynthia, were born into the comfort, not the struggle. They saw the beautiful house, the sprawling company, and thought it was their birthright. They never saw the sweat their parents poured into the foundation. Robert had his father's charm, but none of the substance, a consultant whose main job was expensive lunches. His wife, Beatrice, looked at Eleanor's name and saw a credit card with no limit. Cynthia was colder, more calculating. She played the part of the devoted daughter while waging a quiet war for control, with her spineless accountant husband, George, trailing in her wake. For years, Richard was the shield. He managed the business, and he managed his children's greed. Eleanor was the artist, the genius behind the designs. She let him handle the ugly parts. At every family dinner, Robert and Cynthia would talk about when we take over, their eyes gleaming with avarice. They didn't see parents. They saw placeholders. I used to think Eleanor didn't see it, that her love made her blind. I was a fool. Eleanor saw everything. She was just waiting. The shift came when Richard died. Cancer, fast and brutal. Eleanor was his rock, right to the very last breath. The funeral was a production, of course, Cynthia insisted, but even through the performance of grief you could see them. The whispers, the glances, the gears of greed turning behind their eyes. The day after they buried their father, they came for their mother. Not with hugs, but with a folder. Robert put on his responsible son face. "Mom, we need to talk about the future. You can't carry this burden alone." Cynthia's voice dripped with fake concern. "Let us handle things." It was a coup, wrapped in the language of kindness. They had a plan to gut the company, with Robert as CEO and Cynthia's husband as CFO, while Eleanor was put out to pasture. They thought she was just a fragile, grieving widow. They were about to learn who she really was. She listened to their entire pitch. Then she looked up, and the grief in her eyes was gone, replaced by something that made the room go cold. Steel. "Thank you for your concern," she said, her voice quiet but deadly. "I am the majority shareholder. This discussion is over." The masks fell. Robert's face twisted into a petulant sneer. Cynthia's eyes flashed with pure rage. They left, spitting threats under their breath. When the door closed, Eleanor looked at me. "It started, David," she said. Richard had always protected her from them. Now, it was her turn to fight. This wasn't just an inheritance dispute. It was war. What followed was a campaign of psychological warfare. Robert, using his joke of a consultant title, tried to poison the company from the inside, spreading rumors about Eleanor's failing leadership. His plan was simple: create chaos, seize control, liquidate. Cynthia's tactics were dirtier. She weaponized concern, a daily drip of poison in Eleanor's ear. "Mother, you sound tired. Mother, you're forgetting things." The clients are worried about you. They were building a case, brick by brick, that she was losing her mind. They tried to cut her off, to isolate her from her friends, from me. They wanted to be the only voices she heard. But I made sure they weren't. I'd go over and find her in her garden, her face set like stone. "They think I'm a fool, David," she told me once, snipping the head off a dead rose. "They forget I built this company with my bare hands." The final betrayal, the one that sealed their fates, came about a year later. Robert went behind her back and told their biggest client the company was collapsing under his aging mother. He tried to steal the account to force her out. It was a kill shot aimed at the heart of his father's legacy. But the client was loyal to Eleanor. He called her, and when she found out, something inside her didn't just break, it hardened into a diamond. I found her in her study that night, not crying, but sitting at Richard's desk, her face a mask of cold fury. "They tried to burn it down," she said, her voice unnervingly calm. "My own son. He would rather destroy it than let me run it. The line has been crossed. They made their choice. Now I make mine." That was the moment the grieving widow died, and the general was born. The quiet spa retreats were trips to the city to meet with a shark tank of corporate lawyers. The worried phone calls were replaced by strategy sessions. They saw her withdrawal and thought she was breaking. They mistook silence for surrender. They were so busy celebrating their victory they never saw her building their tomb. Their final arrogant mistake was filing for a conservatorship, using their own manufactured lies as evidence. They sent a letter: "Sign everything over to us, or we'll have a judge declare you incompetent." It was an ultimatum. They thought they had her trapped. She agreed to their meeting, and they walked right into her trap. So we come back to that conference room, a polished mahogany tomb. On one side, Robert, Beatrice, Cynthia, and George, practically vibrating with greed. Their lawyer stood like a proud executioner, documents ready. On the other side, Eleanor, flanked by two lawyers who looked like they ate people like Robert for breakfast. And me. She asked me to be there, to bear witness. Their lawyers started, spewing fiction about familial devotion and their generous offer to save their ailing mother. When he finished, he slid the papers across the table. "It's for the best, Mom," Robert said, his smile dripping with condescension. Eleanor let the silence stretch until it was uncomfortable. Then she turned to her lawyer. "Miss Albright," she said, her voice ringing like a bell, "I believe you have something for them." Miss Albright smiled, a sharp, cruel line. She placed a single, heavy document on the table. The thud echoed like a closing casket. "This," she announced, "is the Vance Legacy Charitable Trust. Irrevocable. Fully executed 3 months ago." The blood drained from their faces. The smug smiles evaporated. "At Mrs. Vance's direction," Miss Albright continued, her voice like ice, "she has transferred 100% of her shares in Vance Interiors, this building, and the majority of her assets into this trust. The profits will now fund design scholarships and support artisans worldwide." Robert sputtered. "You can't do that." "Oh, she can," Miss Albright purred. And she did. Mrs. Vance will continue to run the company as chair of the trust's board. A board, I should add, that does not include any of you. "What about us?" Cynthia shrieked. "The inheritance." And that's when Eleanor leaned forward, her eyes burning holes in them. "Inheritance?" she said, the word like acid. You seem to think this company was owed to you. A legacy is something you build, not something you circle like vultures. You, she stared at Robert, tried to burn your father's legacy to the ground for cash. And you, she turned to Cynthia, tried to have me declared insane so you could pick at the bones. You made it clear money was all you cared about. So I decided to give the money to people who deserved it. Her voice dropped to a whisper. As for you, my new will leaves you each $1, so no one can ever say I simply forgot you. The room exploded. We'll sue! Robert screamed, his face purple. We'll prove you're incompetent. Miss Albright didn't even blink. Please, try, she said. We have monthly cognitive evaluations from 3 separate neurologists confirming your mother is of exceptionally sound mind. We have recordings of your phone calls, Cynthia. We have the emails from your attempt to defraud a client, Robert. We have sworn affidavits from a dozen people detailing your campaign to isolate your mother. You didn't just give her a reason to do this. You gave her the evidence to make it bulletproof. Contesting this will be a very public, very expensive funeral for your reputations. They were broken. It wasn't just a loss, it was annihilation. They walked into a negotiation and found themselves at their own sentencing. She had used their own greed, their own cruelty, as the raw material for their ruin. Eleanor stood. The meeting is over, she said, her voice absolute. Security will see you out. You are trespassing. Then she turned and walked away, not even glancing at the wreckage she'd left behind. I followed her back to her office. She stood at the window, looking out at the city, the empire she almost lost. Then she turned to me, the steel in her eyes finally softening. He would be proud, wouldn't he, David? He'd be in awe, Eleanor, I said. And I meant it. She didn't just save the company. She gave it a soul. Their threats to sue were pathetic. The judge threw their case out, calling it frivolous and malicious. The public humiliation was total. Robert and Cynthia, who had lived their lives on credit against a future they thought was guaranteed, were left with nothing but their $1 inheritance and a mountain of debt. Their perfect world burned to the ground. That was 2 years ago. The woman I see today isn't the grieving widow they tried to bury. The weight is gone. She runs the foundation with a fire I haven't seen in years, changing lives, building something that will last forever. She's surrounded by people who respect her, not by vipers waiting for her to die. She didn't just win. She rewrote the entire game. They made a fatal mistake. They thought she was just a chapter in their story. She was the one holding the pen. Turns out greed makes you bold, but it also makes you stupid. Watch this next for another jaw-dropping tale of greed, betrayal, and revenge you won't see coming.